Ένα μήνυμα στα ελληνικά. Καλημέρα σας. Καλώς ήρθατε στο CEO Initiative Masterclass στο Delphi Οικονομικό Φόρουμ. Είναι μεγάλη μας χαρά που σας έχουμε σήμερα εδώ. Θέλω να τονίσω ότι είναι μια άτυπη συνάντηση. Δηλαδή θα μιλήσουμε με τους δύο μιλητές, αλλά προφανώς θα έχετε τη δυνατότητα και να τοποθετηθείτε ελληνικά ή αγγλικά. Έχουμε translators εδώ, οπότε δεν υπάρχει τέτοιο θέμα. Και στόχος όλων αυτών των ενεργειών είναι να θέσουμε την ατζέντα για το μεγάλο φόρουμ τον Νοέμβριο στη Μεγάλη Βρετανία. Το CEO Initiative κλείνει φέτος 5 χρόνια και είναι χαρά μας που τρέχει σε συνεργασία με την Τζομόκος ένα μεγάλο φόρουμ από το Fortune, το οποίο κυρίως έχει στο στόχο το πώς οι επιχειρήσεις δρούν με σκοπό και θέτει τις προκλήσεις νέας εποχής. Αυτό ο Γιάννης έχει κάνει την εισαγωγή, so I turn in English now, François. We are going to start with you. Yannis said that you are a big fan of technology. And your main research is focused on AI, artificial intelligence. I would like to ask you at first why you decided to return to Europe and help Europe to see and realize the possibilities of AI.
So basically, can you hear me? Or,
Now it's okay.
now it's okay. So basically, I've been living in China for almost a decade, and it's very interesting because the key moment was actually a forum organized by Fortune.
Okay.
It was in Guangzhou, and they have a big AI summit in Guangzhou, and we were only 2 Europeans. There were many Chinese, of course, many Americans at that time. It was in 2017, and but just two Europeans. And for me, it was echoing what I was experiencing when I was back to Europe compared to what I was living in China, where I could see the companies having technology and AI at the core of their business, where I was seeing consumers, even in remote areas, willing to use new technologies. And when I was back here, I had the feeling that to become part of an underdeveloping country when I was in France. And so it made me think that to a certain extent Europe at the beginning of the 21st century was a bit like China in the middle of the 19th century, which means that we are a brilliant civilization, we miss an industrial revolution, and we live history. And so when you do that, you consider that what do you do? And it can go very quickly. China was around 30% of the global GDP in 1850. 30, maybe 29, I don't know. But, and 40 years later, they were at around 10. So I think that for us, we could collapse. And this is why I decided to come back to Europe, to have discussions in such forums, to talk to governments and all the likes. But my sons call me Cassandra, so it tells you how much impact I have.
So the main goal is to accelerate.
No, the main goal, yes, is really to accelerate, and there is we might come back to that later, because I think that the key question is about Michael Porter, a professor of strategy, was saying that the competitiveness of a country depends on the capacity of its industry to innovate and upgrade. And I think that given on our social model, upgrading traditional companies, embracing and embarking on the technological revolution is absolutely critical.
So we are going to discuss about this with the other companies too, but at first AI seems to be a fantastic enabler. What excites you more about this?
There are a few things. The first one is about the capabilities even of traditional AI, because we all talk about generative AI and so on, but traditional AI is not too bad, because you can have ultra granularity. It's like the James Webb telescope, if you want. It helps you understand patterns. There is continuous and autonomous learning. You can take decision making, many decisions based on data. This is in real time, and this is how you get your Uber. And I think then, and you can scale, of course, at almost zero marginal cost. So if you had now generative AI, where you can consider that all your employees have read everything and have an infinite memory, but remember that memory is not reliable. So you have great opportunities. But what makes me feel more excited, and it is based on regular let's say, research we do with MIT is the fact that humans won't get replaced by AI. Humans will get replaced by human using AI. And I think that's very important to understand that this is when human and AI work alongside and learn from each other that you really get full financial impact. And maybe the last thing on that part as well between human and AI, that based on some research, we identify that when you use AI well, it can have a fantastic impact on your culture. You will have a more collaborative culture, you will have more collective learning, and your employees are happier because they feel that they are part of a company that is really moving into the right direction.
So you are not excited about ChatGPT?
No, I am excited. I am excited about ChatGPT because I think it will drastically transform the world, and it puts, let's say, everyone as one of the founders of OpenAI used to say ChatGPT has made English or Greek the hottest programming language. So everyone can get now access to this. Can become a data scientist, but it requires and it will really transform the way our companies are working.
So many analysts support that the framework in Europe for the AI is very strict. It seems that we are afraid of the new technologies. What's your opinion about this?
So it's not just about AI. So I mean, I think that unfortunately we are very good at regulating, and we are proud of it. On my hand, I would prefer us to create a real domestic market to help our startups really thrive and have a domestic market as we see it in the US or in China. I would like to see industry policies as well, so that we are in a better position, because at the moment, and we have 450 digital hubs in Europe. Okay. It's twice as many as what we see in China for, I would say, more limited results. So I think that, and I've been working a lot about quantum computing, which in my opinion is one of the other key topics beyond AI. So that, and what we see that countries are not, so France, for instance, with the Netherlands, they both are trying to have networks of quantum computers, but without any synergy. The same year you had, let's say, France and Germany releasing their quantum plan, and there was absolutely no connection. So you could say there is a pattern here, which is France, but sorry about that.
Nice
but I think that it's really important for us to really go there. And in my opinion, in Europe, we have three main priorities. The first one is, as I said, the upgrade of traditional companies with AI. The second is to make sure that our quantum computing startups are becoming scale-ups and are really becoming global players. And the third one, which is on synthetic biology, which is, and synthetic biology will impact around 30% of the global GDP in the next 10 to 20 years. Okay. We don't have a good ecosystem there. So you will tell me, yes, but why do you talk about synthetic biology while there is AI? Because AI is a key enabler of it to happen, and to happen at the right place. So these are my three obsessions.
I think that AI is the key, but how do you believe, which are the catalysts for the traditional companies to embrace AI?
So the catalyst, we've just released a big study where we interviewed thousands of companies in different countries, and what we see is that you have three main issues when you are a traditional company and you want to embark into the AI point. The first one is that very often you don't master the tools that are required to create a customized AI solution. This is the first one. The second one is that the access to talents, because when you are an AI talent, you don't want to come to companies where AI is not at the core of it. And the third one is about the processes and how to rethink the processes, because you need to put AI at the core of these processes. It's not to do or to optimize your current process thanks to AI, is to rethink your entire process, putting human and AI together and AI at the core. And what we found is that especially in China, they've been developing a very interesting concept, which is a concept that I call the transformers. And there are tech companies that are leveraging technologies made by the technology giants, but that are really customizing them for a vertical industry or for a function. So they help traditional companies embark. The Chinese are helping Chinese traditional companies to embark into this journey, because if you want, the distance or the difficulty to make it happen is much lower. And this is not what we find in Europe. We have, I would say, these transformer candidates, but traditional companies are worried to collaborate with them, because first of all, they see them as potential competitors. Then they say, okay, but if we do that, they are small companies. If they fail and they go bankrupt, what do I do? So I think that we have this question about this mindset. How can we change this mindset? Because when you really cooperate, 80% of the companies will be very, very successful when they cooperate and embark into this journey. So I think that one of the main reasons is because in Europe, the cost of failure is much too high, and people don't want to innovate.
Yeah, today we have a lot of leaders here and CEO of companies. How they can use AI or new technologies to make better decisions?
But it's at the core, basically, AI is augmenting you. So the traditional AI, I would say, is more augmenting the contributors, the salespeople, and so on, because by giving them the next best action, so there are plenty of algorithms. Generative AI is more helping, let's say, in a sense, the managers, because you have a first draft. But I think that AI is here to. I make this analogy, as I said. You will see, because I'm with MIT. We are having on May 8th a new article that will come, which is exactly on that, and we make the analogy with the James Webb Telescope, because it helps you see things you could not see otherwise, and therefore it should help you redefine the performance, the way you think the performance in your company.
Okay, two last comments before opening the discussion. I would like to ask you, how do you see the Greek paradigm, the digital transformation here? Do you have a comment? And also, I would like to close the discussion saying about the AI ethics, as we say. It's a big discussion.
So for Greece, I must admit that when I'm here, and thanks to Vasily, and I really enjoy coming here, and I find very good companies. So this is the first point. The second point is, I believe you should become the Silicon Valley of Europe. Okay. So you have a great diaspora, you have great engineers. So really, I think that you have this opportunity to do something quite unique. But we need this domestic market to emerge. So I think you have a potential future. It's hard, but you have really great opportunities. And with companies, with Microsoft to support you, I'm sure you can do great things as well. No, but I must admit that the reason why I mentioned Microsoft is because you cannot do anything we cannot do things without relying on these giants. And among the giants, the only one who is really local, who is thinking about what will happen here, is really Microsoft. And they don't do it because they are nice, whatever. It's just because they learn it. They learned it the hard way in 2000 when they were about to be dismantled. But I think that, as we say in China, there is always good and bad. They took the lesson, and now they are much better prepared. And I promise there is no advertisement. It's really totally genuine and candid.
So, Theodosis, do you like to have a first comment?
So thank you for the comment. Yes, I do agree that we've been here 30 years in Greece, and we have a concept for GR for growth, and in general, I think we are participating on the digitization of the Greek society. However, my question would go, I do believe that what we're living with generative AI, we discussed also yesterday, is kind of, it's probably the biggest revolution that has happened after the internet, the mobile phone, I don't know, it depends on how you see it. I would go back to your experience in China. I would like to learn more here because I would continue on the comment of Tassos and I would take it from there. So China has had a huge advantage on the algorithms because of the way they treated data. We are a very highly regulated region, and this is why we've left behind as Europe. Now, my question goes thus: how do you feel that generative AI changes this? Because practically, I'm not sure, but you will help me here, that I believe that maybe it's an opportunity for us, despite the high regulation and the data protections that China doesn't have, to leapfrog using generative AI, because we can do that. It's a much easier way to handle the lack of data that we have in processing, etc. Do you see that as an opportunity?
So there are two questions here. One comment on China. They have now on privacy, on data privacy, a law that is more stringent than GDPR. Yes, it was issued in 2021, but they have a very different way to think about regulation. They are more on an ex post regulation and with a very fast implementation. So here in Europe, I had the discussion with where you have people, you have bureaucrats thinking, okay, what will happen? How can I preempt the issue that we will face? So this is a way you put, for instance, the telecom networks in the critical infrastructure, and therefore you cannot use AI for them and so on, which is a real hurdle. So we put hurdles on hurdles on hurdles. So in China, the way they do it, they say, okay, we look at it, they have a real constant dialogue with the companies, and then at some point they say, okay, this is a regulation and it needs to get implemented in 6 months. So I think that it's very different. So it's not to say that they are perfect. I'm not Chinese, so but I think that we have some lessons to. We should not throw away the baby with the bath tube, or with the bath water. I don't know how you say that in English. So this is the first point. Then on generative AI, what is true is that with generative AI you can create synthetic data that are absolutely critical to train the algorithm and even the traditional ML and so. So the only fear I have, and you see it in Italy and others, is basically that we are so afraid of what could happen that we will regulate. So we will do our best in Europe to make sure that European companies cannot benefit from it. At least this is my fear. So, and you can see already there are questions about all the copyrights, about yes, but if it is AI, where the IP is, and so on. These are important questions, but I think we should be better to accompany the movement instead of trying to stop it by default. Okay. It's a mindset shift.
Before proceeding, Pavlos would like to have a comment.
Yes, Tasso, I don't know if this will be helpful, but I think that we're reaching a stage where a game-changing element enters the digital transformation era of our time, which is that AI is now in the hands of an ordinary person, someone who doesn't know coding, someone who doesn't understand how we've made the technology, but now he's enabled to use it. And I think that it's game-changing and it has applications for business that we have to decode. And we have a lot of members here from the CEO Initiative Network who are in this field of business, and they have prepared thoughts from their industry. We have leaders from Industry 4, we have leaders in the digital transformation for business, and we have leaders who are investing in this type of firms. So we have mapped them, Tasso, and I think that at some point we can open up, but I did want, Francois, a reaction on how transformative is this stage, how game-changing is it, where the digital transformation dynamic is changing with such, let's say, a wide democratization, but at the same time disruption, because your average employee can be upskilled and reskilled through an AI platform.
So on a, so it's
how
long do we have? So so first of all, we don't have all the answers because it's everyone is in an experimenting mode and so on. But this is definitely critical, and this is critical not only because you have the use cases then like the Microsoft Copilot, which are a bit interesting but a bit boring. So they are useful, but because you can really, because what I'm saying boring is the fact that you won't create a source of competitive advantage through this. However, with generative AI, you can, for instance, totally redesign your research and development. You have, for instance, the inverse design. I'm currently working with a new material company, and instead of having some ideas and then you look at the impact, you asked, in that case, it's not ChatGPT, it's a more focused large language model, but you ask, okay, what should I do? I would like a material that has this characteristics, more conductiveness, and so on. And then it gives you a list of potential candidates. Mm-hmm. And then you test. So you are changing the way you do it. Foundation models, you can challenge whether this is generative AI or not, but as it is based on probabilities, basically you get the opportunity to have better predictions, better forecasting, even than traditional ML or traditional deep learning. So this is really drastically revisiting the way you do your business on one side. The second side, as you say, is that it is totally changing the way people will work. We made an experiment, and you will see plenty of experiments and plenty of academic papers and so on. So it's one of them, where we see the way the evolution of the task made by, let's say, a clerk. Mm-hmm. You used to have to spend a bit of time thinking about, okay, the angle. Then you collect data. Then you spend a lot of time to analyze the data and to build the story. And then you have a little bit of supervision. What we found in our experiment, in that case, is that first you had a productivity gain of around 40%. But what was more interesting, in my opinion, is that now the work is spent between 40% of this new task is made for prompting, so questioning. So we are back to Socrates times. Mm-hmm. The art of questioning will become even more important. Then you have everything that was taking 80% of the previous is basically made instantaneously. But then you have the question of the supervising and where the humans on this first draft will add more value. And so it means that I was discussing with data scientists, they have the feeling that all their experience that was more made is now collapsing, and just by asking questions to them, so they are then dying in a sense. So I think that when you are in your early 30s or late 20s, you don't have that much experience yet, but you've spent 15 years with uni college and so on, and big to start working on that. This is scary.
Okay, nice. So we have together today Mr. Gizelis, for example, speaking about new technologies, or Mr. Hadjikos from Siemens. If you want to make a comment on the discussion, Mr. Gizelis.
Good morning from my side. I'm Gizelis Evangelos, CEO and founder of Gizelis Robotics. We are robotic integrators located in Schematari. And I would like to make my comment concerning the AI about the industry. First of all, you have to understand that automation is not Industry 4, it's Industry 3. Industry 4, 4.0 has to do with automation and people, trying to find the missing middle. That means what automation can offer as a competitive advantage and what do people they could offer from their side that automation cannot offer. So AI is a step further, at least for the industry. I'm very glad François mentioned that we have to become the Silicon Valley of Europe, and we have to believe that we can do things and we don't have to feel second-class producers or second-class thinkers, let's say, because we are located in Greece and we are not located in Germany. After 30 years of deindustrialization of Europe, things are changing. Productions are coming back to Europe, and this is a very big opportunity for the Greek businessmen. they have to believe that they can compete, because competition is not internal, competition is global. And if we want to compete globally, we have to bring the competitive advantage of the first mover, which is very important. We don't have to follow competition. We have to follow the customers, what the customers want. And we have to find our blue ocean, meaning that to produce new market segments, new needs, and not to run always behind other big competitors located in Europe or else in the world. So concerning automation, what I can say is that definitely for Greek producers is a one way if they want to keep competitiveness. They have to produce the culture inside in order to be able to adapt automation, because this is very important. You cannot automate everything in one day. You are going to produce a very big mess. First, you have to produce the culture in order to accept automation inside. And that's why there are many cases that even when you can prove to somebody that the ROI is going to be of automation less than 1 year, they are afraid. They are afraid because they know that they don't have internally the culture in order to accept this step. But this step is a one-way step. And we have to believe that here in Greece, we can produce, we can be competitive, we have very good engineers, there is a very big potential and a very big opportunity, and we have to take advantages, the advantages of being like Odysseus, first movers, polymechani in Greek.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that we have a bright future here.
And also, Mr. Gizelis, the production is changing through AI, and we also believe in fortune that Greece could be the R&D hub of this territory. So I totally agree.
And I would like to add, because I think that what you said is absolutely critical, because I cannot tell exactly for Greece more specifically, but in Europe, because as I mentioned, this mindset of the cost of failure, and as it is the cost of failure is very high, people are not innovating. How many times have I heard startups telling me, okay, I cannot, or let's say large companies telling me, no, is this solution proven somewhere else? But if you take just solutions that are proven, basically you're not the first mover. That's not possible. And how many times have I heard startups telling me, okay, our main clients is in the US, because there they understand that we don't have a full-scale solution, but they are helping us building it. So I think that this notion and this dialogue between tech companies like yours, and incumbents to make sure that they upgrade becomes the core of the future of Europe. Okay. In general, Greece in particular.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm George Pehlivanoglu, the General Director of Unis Energy. Just would like to make a comment and a short question regarding your very interesting speech before. So we have been using in our company AI for several years for energy data analytics, but we have been using ChatGPT since November in the company, just trying to understand.
Yeah, to experiment.
To experiment and understand what's happening. Our lawyers were the first ones who got really scared, I have to say, rightfully so. But I'm concerned about one systematic error. So we have identified that there is a systematic bias in the training of most of the models. So we have basically the well-known Matthew effect that you have also on Google searches, that whatever is searched more appears often, and whenever something is not really coming up in the searches, you basically doesn't exist, because nothing exists behind the 4th page of Google, right? So we identified such a bias in the training of all the AI models that we identified. Because we do a lot of deep research in aerodynamics and space and fields that are not really super popular,
it's easy to identify the bias. I have a question for you, because for me it's a concern. When we start using these tools more and more, if we don't fix this bias, I believe innovation is gone, because all minds turn back again in the same circle without taking into account the unique ideas and the unique information in our world.
So first of all, I think that's a very good point, and you have biases in two ways, because very often people, when you talk about biases, they think about gender biases, or so this, which is an important critical part. But I think that what you say, the fact that everyone is converging, and this is where I believe this notion of human plus AI is important, because to a certain extent you could say you need to consider ChatGPT as a junior person, but it doesn't prevent you from trying to be very to spend more time on things that are adding more value. The issue we face is that humans have a great characteristic: we're extremely lazy. And I mentioned that because I'm doing another experiment, in that case with Harvard, and what we find is that, so it's on a problem solving whatever, it's that when people trust ChatGPT, basically they copy and paste, and the value becomes really lower. So we are making something different, where we say, okay, basically you will get some, you will be more productive, but we want you to spend enough time to add more value, and then the quality is much better. So I think that in the way we will organize the workflow, it is critical for us to rethink it and to make sure that we spend enough time thinking about how can human bring additional value on top of what ChatGPT can, or I won't make just publicity and advertisement for Microsoft. So let's say, or Bart, or others, or Google can do. So I think that this combination is really critical, but I fear that many companies won't do it because it's really, it's tough not to be lazy.
If I can add here, are you testing ChatGPT? Have you tested GPT-4 as the base model, and it has the same biases?
On specific, on the deep specific topics, on general discussion or on legal
because it's
contracts,
a leapfrog.
It is a huge difference. Yeah. But you know, when we're talking about legal contracts and things like that, it's really a junior lawyer. But when we're talking about really deep scientific topics, there is a bias.
Yeah, but this is where you will see probably in the future in this industry, you will see general purpose algos like ChatGPT coexisting with more specialized. This is, for instance, what Bloomberg does. They have, in a sense, it's really focused on an area, but on this area, it performs at least as well as ChatGPT.
And also, there is no memory practically in this base model.
Yes.
So what happens with Google cannot happen with GPT. It's different the way it operates. But I'm here. Also, I would like to ask if your lawyers had a problem with the data or about their job in the future. But
about the job. About the job.
Okay.
Sure. So it's getting too exciting.
And Mr. Hadjikos for a last comment, and then we are going to open the discussion.
Yeah,
with Mr.
just
Hadjikos.
a very quick comment. I mean,
There is a question.
The whole process is in the beginning. So for sure, there's going to be a lot of new development, and the more data the ChatGPT will use in the future, it will become more efficient, and the solution will be much, much better. For example, we at Siemens were starting using ChatGPT for code creation on our industrial PCs, for example. And for simple actions like turn on the lights, it's really great. Within seconds, you create the code into an industrial PC and you control the bulb. When you have more difficult tasks, like using industrial PCs to control inverters, industrial inverters, for example, it's much more difficult. So also sometimes it creates functions that do not exist. They cannot be possible. And this is also another issue. But we are just on the beginning. The more the data and the more efficient we will give them, they will create really, really good results. And this is just a matter of time before we proceed. I think on OpenAI, right now, they have access to 500 billion words at the moment.
Yeah,
so imagine within the next year, we as Siemens, we create from one production line on a factory, we create something like 1 terabytes per day. So this data, the more you give into the ChatGPT, it will evolve and create much more results. Okay, so this is just for
one comment from Ms. Barpetaki, the CEO of AbbVie, and then François, you can close the discussion.
Then I should
Thank you very much for these interesting insights. I'm Labrina Barpetaki, President of AbbVie Biopharmaceuticals. So my question with interest, I'm looking at the trend of data, and I would like to take it to the level of solutions and the patient and the healthcare ecosystem. With interest, with pharma and healthcare, we're looking at AI. And with very much interest, we're observing dialogue also between healthcare professionals about the services to the patient and about, for example, the topics of shared informed decision-making with the patient and how the involve and the evolution of services will actually be promoted by the use of data, which is enormous. So we spoke about performance, we spoke about producing. How about the other side, about people wanting services? And how do you think this will evolve with the doctors' dialogue, with the institutions' provision of healthcare services?
So I think, so I'm not a specialist of healthcare, but as I said, AI basically helps collaboration between people. So I think that, and we see that in companies and between departments in companies and so on. So I think that's the same, because the quality of information, the quality of the decision is higher. So it augments the quality of the decision, and therefore, people, you have less friction. So I strongly believe that AI can help make our world better as long as we continue to supervise it, and we continue, we are not becoming as lazy, so lazy that we don't want to, we are just fed by it. But I strongly believe in the potential of what you've described.